Well, good morning, folks, and welcome to the Sabi Sands. It is a beautiful morning here. Sorry we were a bit delayed by a few minutes. We had some technical difficulties, and just to let you know, we managed to correct most of them, but one problem I'm having is that I cannot see the monitor that would show me what is being filmed, which does make things a little bit interesting. So bear in mind if I'm talking about something that you're not looking at, because I obviously don't know exactly what is being filmed. We have Niv on camera this morning. He's a new addition to our team for until Friday, and very nice to have him on board. I'll tell you a little bit more about Nadav as the morning progresses, but what I'd like to start by saying is that on our way into camp this morning we did see some more male leopard tracks, and they were heading back towards the dam that we are at now, Vuyatela Dam. So we'll just stop around here for a few minutes, and what I can see is a family of Egyptian geese, which would be really nice to take a closer look at. Now, we've seen these Egyptian geese and the 7 goslings before. I saw them for the first time about 4 or 5 days ago, and there were 7 individuals then, and I've just counted, there are still 7 now, which is great. One did look considerably smaller and did have a little bit of a limp, so I was concerned for that one's well-being. And very interestingly, one of the chatters, Deanne, who spends a lot of time monitoring the waterhole camera at Pete's Pond in Mashatu, another one of our waterhole cameras, she sent me a message the other day saying that she'd seen some very interesting behavior with a family of Egyptian geese, just like what we're looking at over here, and then a crowned crane that, I think it was about a week ago, she said, this crowned crane started following the family of Egyptian geese as if it was one of them. And it wasn't just for a day, it's continued day in and day out to follow this family of Egyptian geese. Now, it's hard to tell why it's done that, but I've seen one picture that Deanne sent me, and it looks like a fully grown crowned crane. So I was initially thinking, well, if it's a juvenile crowned crane, maybe it's just feeling a bit lost and looking for some family life that it may be missing. But it looks fully grown, so hard to tell why exactly it's been following a family of Egyptian geese for so long, but these strange relationships do happen in nature. But why exactly, I am not sure. It's certainly abnormal behavior and something that's so great to be able to witness, and that is what is the great thing about having waterhole cameras that film 24 hours a day and really do provide us insight to strange occurrences, such as the crowned crane following a family of Egyptian geese. So interestingly, geese and ducks, unlike other birds, can look after themselves to a degree from the moment they hatch. If you were to take these parents away from the goslings, provided there was no predators and plentiful food, they would be able to look after themselves because they know how to feed from the moment they are born or hatch. Unlike other birds that when they hatch they have no feathers, they require their mothers and fathers to feed them, these are somewhat different, that they are born a little bit more developed and mature. So the 2 parents that are clearly guarding them closely, their main function now will be to fend off or deter any predators that may come and try and catch the baby geese, birds of prey being one of them that they would defend their young against. Fish eagles, for example, may try to catch the goslings. For those of you who are joining for your first time, welcome on board. And for those of you that have been watching for many years or just a few weeks, welcome back. It's good to have you on board. So it's going to be interesting to see what's out there this morning. We did drive a section of road that would have been useful in providing us information on the Birmingham boys, the 5 young male lions that we saw yesterday evening. But we didn't see any tracks of them coming towards us. My plan is to let the rangers in that area of operation explore a little bit and hopefully provide us with a little bit more intel as to where those lions may have moved to. But in the meantime, we'll just spend a little bit of time around here. There was a leopard seen yesterday, more tracks around the camp, which is very close to where we are now. There was a hyena track crossing the road there. I just needed to double check to make sure it wasn't a leopard or a wild dog. A duiker just ran across the road there, which got me a little bit excited. Well, we can hear a go-away bird. We're going to try and show it. It's hidden in quite a thick bush, but we'll definitely be able to hear its call. Now, it's difficult to see, but it's hidden in a thick green bush directly in front of the vehicle. But the main thing I want you to hear is its audio, because it's got a very unique call that has influenced what this bird is called. It's called a grey go-away bird, and that quang call obviously sounds a little bit like it's saying go away, and it is an alarm call that the bird would use to indicate to other potential prey items like itself that there is danger about. It could be a snake, a mongoose, leopard, bird of prey. There was a bird of prey, it looked like a Wahlberg's eagle, that flew over as this go-away bird was alarm calling. It's not jumping out into hopefully a little bit of a view for you, but sadly it has stopped that alarm call that I wanted you to hear. Oh, here it goes again. Also hear some red-billed oxpeckers flying over. They'll be out looking for a buffalo and other such animals that carry their food in the form of ectoparasites. Let me see if I can creep a little bit further forward and get you a better shot of this grey go-away bird. They're really pretty. Well, we tried. I'm not sure if you got a glimpse there. If you would like to ask any questions, hashtag Safari Live is your Twitter option, and questions at wildearth.tv would be your email option. We really do appreciate the questions you do send through. Sorry if we don't manage to answer your specific question. There are a lot that come through, but the more that come through, the better for us, so thank you. What I would like to do at some stage this morning is drive through a beautiful stretch of riverbed, just to show you guys a change of scenery. And it's a road that I really love, and I've only driven it once. I would also like to show Nadav, the cameraman, that road. I don't think he has been down it yet, so now, other than its beauty and the fact that you are driving down a sandy riverbed, which is abnormal, I guess, relative to places you usually find oneself driving. So the beauty is something to look forward to, the fact that it's very different to where you may usually find yourself driving. And thirdly, the stereotype of seeing leopards in riverbeds is for a reason, and who knows, maybe we'll get lucky and find a leopard lurking alongside the riverbank. There were some giraffe tracks crossing the road heading in the direction that we were heading in, but instead of giraffe, we have something else to look at. I'm just going to get into position, but we do have something in store for you. In the early morning like this, when the sun is low, it's just important to try and get the sun behind us, otherwise you'll not be able to see anything. Got a question that's just come through from Jason asking about baboon spiders that we get in this area. Now, to be brutally honest, I do need to brush up on James, sorry, not Jason. Morning, Jason. Thanks for this, James. Thanks for this question. I'm going to need to do a little bit of research on it, but what I can tell you is that they are about the size of your palm, the baboon spiders, and I'm fairly confident that it's called a brown-backed baboon spider. But yes, they live in holes that I've noticed in the ground, the baboon spiders, and I'm fairly sure the main one we get here is called the brown-backed baboon spider. But I will do some research on that for you, James, and let you know as soon as I know a bit more information about that. I do really enjoy the smaller creatures. Scorpions are one of my favorites. And so are spiders, but like I said, I just need to brush up on my knowledge there. Now we are nearly in position where we can just park and wait and let this herd of elephants move around us. Okay. Now this youngster could be the same individual that decided to knock down a termite mound the other evening. I'm not sure if some of you are following that drive, but it's not uncommon for these young bulls to be quite playful and cheeky in terms of their response to us and the vehicles. Now, rather than moving around too much, folks, I'd rather just wait and let them hopefully feed around us, which I'm hoping they will do. And again, just a reminder, I have no monitor today, so I don't have any idea of exactly what you're looking at. I'm just looking at the camera to see where it's pointing, so that is something to bear in mind, that if I'm talking about something that's irrelevant to what you are watching, please bear with me. The young bull that gave us a little bit of attitude earlier is now coming to give us a bit more attitude, which is wonderful. Hello. Good morning. Again, it is difficult when it moves behind the back of the vehicle. It is really awesome to see their behavior when they do come in shaking their head, and it gives you an idea of what a big bull would be like if he was in a bad mood. Not that this one is in a bad mood, it's certainly a playful situation that it's experiencing here. Oh, I just want to try and snap a few photos of this. The cameramen sadly are the ones capturing all the footage, and sadly not much footage is ever captured of them, so when an ellie comes nice and close like this, it gives us an opportunity to take a few snaps of the cameramen. This does look like a herd that we have been seeing but I haven't been here long enough to be able to just arrive and tell you exactly for certain that we have seen these animals before. But like I did mention, that this young bull that's given us a little bit of attitude appears to be one that we've encountered before. It's a great time of the year for the elephant. They have a lot of different options in terms of what they can feed on. Here's a nice big cow that's coming into shot that would be nice to show you guys. She could well be the matriarch of this herd. Beautiful big female. She does appear to be the biggest one that we've seen so far in this herd. So oh, here's another big female in front of us. So these two are in all likelihood the two more dominant females, but one will probably be more dominant than the other when it comes to making decisions as to what the herd should be doing. Okay, got a question from Jackie in Minnesota asking how long it will take for a mother elephant to have her baby. They've got a very long gestation period, Jackie. They typically will carry their calf inside them for 22 months. So an exceptionally long gestation period. And in terms of giving birth to calves, it's on average every 3 to 4 years. So a basically 2-year gestation period, and then at least a year raising that calf minimum before being able to, it's 3 to 4 year intervals between giving birth. So it gives the female a year or two to raise the calf up to a decent age, and then within that period also mates and give birth again 3 to 4 years later. So it's not a yearly occurrence like most of the other animals out here. Incredible to think how long that they carry that little calf inside them for. Now this is what I was hoping for earlier, by trying to kind of preempt where they are going to feed, and giving them the choice to come and feed around you rather than you intruding on them. We can be privileged to have sightings like this where they are very relaxed. We've got a question that's just come through from Rapid City. Morning, Hal. And Hal is asking whether elephants are prone to any specific diseases. And as far as I'm aware, they are not. In Southern Africa and East Africa, where I've spent time, The only problems I've seen elephant encounter is that of humans. And when I say that, it would be humans hunting them for their ivory. And this still sadly does happen quite extensively in certain parts of Africa. But in terms of actual diseases that may hinder them, I'm not aware of any in specific. Whereas other animals in this area, like lion and buffalo, can be affected by tuberculosis. So that is an example of a disease that is prominent with certain species we do find here, but the majority of them thankfully do not have any problems of the sort. I'd be interested to know though if anybody would like to Google elephant diseases, and if you come up with anything interesting you can send that through. Brian is in the control today, so I'm in touch with Brian, who's typically one of the cameramen, but he's taking a turn at directing this morning from the final control room. So send through any information you can to Brian, and he'll relay that to me, and I'd really appreciate that. Okay, another question's just come through from Brenda in Chester Heights. Good morning, Brenda. Brenda has just asked whether the low rumbling vocalization that elephants make is a kind of warning call. Does it indicate that they're distressed? Or, as far as I understand, when I have heard this low rumbling sound, it's typically when the elephants are in a calm state, as opposed to that of a worked up or nervous or excited state. And it's difficult to say for me exactly what they're saying to one another, but in all circumstances that I've heard that low rumbling, it's typically a relaxed noise. And even as I've just made the noise now, it's not a noise that makes you think of being alarmed or frightened. You can imagine when elephants trumpet, and that's already indicating to you that it's a lot more distress than calm. And interestingly, they have different types of communication, some of which are audible to us, like the two noises I've just made. So a loud kind of trumpet, which is usually distress, or a low rumble, which is usually a more calm general chit-chats, if you could put it that way. But they also communicate infrasonically with one another in audio sound waves that we cannot hear. And they basically travel as vibrations through the earth, and elephants can apparently communicate with different herds 20, 30 miles away from one another. And they receive these infrasonic vibrations through their feet, and I've even sometimes noticed elephants stop what they're doing and all lower their trunks onto the ground, so almost a fifth satellite base in which to pick up these infrasonic vibrations that are coming through the earth. They've done very interesting research on elephants with this infrasonic vibration. And who would have thought these animals would be able to communicate essentially silently with one another over many, many kilometers? But thank you very much for that question. It is a good one, and like I say, my understanding of that low rumbling would be a more calm general chit-chat as opposed to a nervous or hyped up vocalization. Excuse me. Oh, folks, thanks for all the questions. Brian says he's being bombarded, which is exactly what we like. Okay, somebody has just asked if I have ever seen twin elephant calves. Virginia. Good morning, Virginia. Sadly, I have not seen twin elephant calves and or any other twins actually in nature. Obviously, leopards and lion give birth to multiple young, and so do birds, but most of your herbivores do only give birth to one youngster. Beautiful big female coming patrolling past us. She may give us a little head shake on the way past, but let's see. Oh, there we go. She's just investigating us and some tasty young saplings. I tend to find that they are feeding a lot on saplings at this time of the year. But back to your question about the twins. I have not seen elephant twins, sadly. It could well have happened somewhere, but typically the herbivores do only give birth to one youngster as a general rule. And I've only ever seen one elephant very newborn, to the degree that there are about 6 or 7 females huddled around it, holding up the calf with their trunk, which was incredible to see. They had completely encircled it, and it could barely stand on its legs without the help of all of them holding it up with their trunk. But other than that specific encounter, I haven't seen any very, very newborn elephant calves. Morning, Brenda. Brenda would like to know if you can tell if and when an elephant is pregnant. You can, certainly, when they are heavily pregnant, you can see the protrusion of the youngster, so their belly is extended quite greatly. But in general, I would say the first half of their gestation, the first 10, 11 months, you are going to battle to tell if they are pregnant. Also, as they become closer to giving birth, their mammary glands will show, as it would with a human. So it's the similar signs you would look for in a pregnant human. But like I say, some humans will show pregnancy earlier and more prominently than others, and it's the same for elephants. But you can certainly tell when they are about to pop. And I'm sure people that have spent a lot of time with elephants, as with any other animal, in terms of intense research, they may be able to pick up more intricate signs or details that would lead them to believing that they are pregnant. But it's difficult in wild open spaces like this to monitor animals very closely, animals that don't have territories. So the leopard, for example, like Karula, we can monitor very closely, and we've got a good idea of what she's doing, considering she's wild and free to do as she pleases. Whereas this herd of elephants could decide to start walking now and walk 180 miles over the next few weeks and be on the other end of the Kruger National Park. So they've got huge ability to roam and move, and that makes getting to understand them and know their intricate ongoings of their life, it is more difficult. I'll revert to Karula as an example. If we see Karula mating, elephants just having a tussle with a tree behind us, you may have heard the branches cracking. So we'll take Karula for example. If we were to see her mating, we would have a good idea of A, who the father is, and B, when she's going to be giving birth, which would be about 90 to 100 days later. Whereas here, if we saw an elephant mating, there's a strong chance we wouldn't see that elephant again for a long time, because it can move off a very great distance. So it's hard to keep track of them to the degree that we can with some other animals. Well, I think that was a beautiful sighting, and we can now leave these elephants alone. They're heading into thicker vegetation, which would make us difficult for us to view them. And we don't want to overstay our welcome, so we can continue towards the Riverbed Boulevard, which I'm excited to take you guys down. Such wonderful animals to view, elephants, because they are always doing something. Okay. A question from Nicholas in Vancouver. Good morning and welcome to this WildEarth safari. Nicholas is asking what types of snakes occur here, and there are many different types of snakes that occur in this area of South Africa. We have constrictors, several constrictors, the African rock python probably being the major constrictor that we get in this area, but there are also a few smaller constrictors. Then adders, which are very similar to vipers, I guess, occur here. The puff adder probably being the most notorious adder in this area. It delivers a nasty cytotoxic venom that breaks down your flesh and not always, but often leads to amputation to prevent further necrosis. So that is one of the main adders that we get. We get mambas here. The black mamba is the mamba that we get in this area. The green mamba, which is the other kind of mamba that you do get in South Africa, occurs more in coastal areas. So we do not get the green mamba here. So yeah, I mean, those are three kind of examples of the major different species. But in terms of front-hinged fangs, back-hinged fangs, we've got the boomslang, which is a back-hinged fang. Many different types of snakes. Sadly, as many snakes as there are in this area, we don't actually get to see them very often. They're secretive and shy animals, and hear the vehicles coming and hide from us. So sadly, snake viewings aren't very common. Oh, we also get cobras. Mozambican spitting cobra is quite a common snake to see. Okay, now, but thanks for that question, Nicholas, and trust me, hopefully we will see a snake soon. But to change the subject quickly, not that I want to, it's just we've been presented with an opportunity to see quite a pretty bird. It's far away, so it'll be difficult to see, but I just want to try and establish if it had something in its talons. I saw what looked to be like a tail dangling between its feet as it took off. Now this bird is called an African harrier hawk, and it's highly specialized in the way that it hunts. It's got long legs that are double jointed, so they can bend in all directions, and this allows the bird to forage for its prey in cavities in trees where a lot of birds and other animals may nest. So it'll stick these long legs into a hole in the tree and just grab with its talons whatever it can. So you often see birds following the African harrier hawk, smaller birds, and attacking it and making sure that it doesn't get anywhere near their nesting hole. It was not yesterday afternoon, the day before, 2 afternoons ago, we actually saw one flying away with the baby Burchell starling. And there was about 6 Burchell starlings mobbing it, and every time it would bend down to take a bite of the baby starling, one of the adult Burchell starlings would fly down and peck it on the back of the head, but sadly the damage had already been done. Even though I've looked through my binoculars, it is difficult to see if it's got something, and not likely because it's not feeding on it, but who knows, maybe it's carrying around a lunchbox for later. Very pretty bird, but hard for you guys to see from this distance, so we'll just have to find you another one another day. And ideally we'd also be able to show you some footage of them hunting. It's very interesting to see how they clamber onto a tree, often with one talon, and then use their other talon to try and get into the cavity and dig around for any potential food. Back to Nicholas's question about snakes and how often we see them. Since I've been here, I've only seen one that we managed to get a glimpse of on film, and that was a black mamba. So it was really exciting. Difficult to film in the conditions, but we did manage to get a few fleeting glimpses of it. Now, I think we may have just found the nest of that harrier hawk that flew off behind us. There's another harrier hawk, I'm guessing it's a partner, that's landed in the fork of a tree at about 11 o'clock, quite way off in the distance, but you can hopefully see the outline of that predator. And then if Nadav then focuses on the fork of this closest tree to us, you can see her gathering a mass of twigs which this bird took flew off from. So even though I say oh, here it's coming back, awesome. It's come closer but not all the way back. Let's wait a few more minutes and see if it does come any closer. In the meantime, I'm just going to have a look through my binoculars and see if we can't see a tiny chick poking its head out of that nest. The chances would be slim because we are so far below it that the angle is unlikely to provide us with a view of a chick, but I'm fairly confident that this is their nest, so we're going to need to monitor this and maybe somehow try and get a camera up there to show us what's going on. Always nice to find birds' nests because you can monitor them every time you drive past. Obviously this one, like I said, would be a bit more difficult because it's very high up. We will continue, but bear that in mind. It's a beautiful tree that it's chose to nest in, a torchwood tree. It's one of my favorites. Phew, it is seriously hot. Yes, Brian, send me some questions, sir. Brian says there are lots of questions coming through, so thank you very, very much for that, folks. We really do appreciate it. Dawn's just asked a very interesting question regarding elephants and the matriarchal system, and who decides who the matriarch is at the end of the day. Now, and how is it that she becomes the matriarch? Is it age? Is it size? For me, I would like to think it's a combination of the two, but I think age and wisdom is the fundamental and main reason that would allow a matriarch into that position. But again, I like to relate things to humans as much as possible. It's like, what makes a rugby captain or a football captain the captain of the team? It's difficult to point on any given finger what causes a person or an individual to have leadership qualities, and it's very similar, I think, for animals. It would be difficult to indicate that closely. We do have a nice bull elephant on our left here, though, not a matriarch, but a nice big bull. And maybe he's just following relatively closely behind that herd we just saw, waiting for any opportunities to mate. But yes, regarding how they establish which one the matriarch is, obviously there's a bit of internal politics in and amongst the herd, and a combination of age and wisdom together with size would be the contributing factors. The main role of a matriarch would be to lead the herd into the right places for feeding and drinking. Those are the two fundamental things that a wild animal has to do. It needs to feed itself and get water. Obviously protection is important, but less so when you're an elephant, because they don't have too much to worry about most of the time in terms of safety. And now, in order for any individual to lead a herd to the right places for feeding and drinking, they would have to have experience. They wouldn't necessarily have to have size or bulk, but often size does come with age. The bigger they are, the bigger they tend to get. So I hope that does answer your question. What? Well, folks, we've just got some incredible information that's just come through. So to whoever did send it through, thank you so much. I'm sure Brian will remind me of your name shortly. But remember, there was a question a few minutes ago regarding whether I've ever seen a elephant giving birth to twins or heard of an elephant with twins, and my answer was no. And now we've just got information that in an area about 400 miles from here, closer to the coast, the east coast of South Africa, called Pongola, there was an elephant birth recorded yesterday of 2 twins, and it was yesterday, I mean in the last 24 hours, and that was a 31-year-old female that apparently has been named Curve, and she did give birth to 2 twins yesterday, so it can happen. And a statistic that was given to me was that it's a 1% chance in elephants having twins. So who would have thought that, considering the question was asked now, just 24 hours ago it actually happened, and in the grand scheme of things not too far from here, which is great news. So thank you so much for sending that information through. And if Brian could just go with the name one more time, that would be great. Marla in Seattle, thank you very, very much for that. That's so awesome that we've got all this information on our fingertips that we can use to obviously learn a lot about these animals, but also when you can tie it in with the question that was just asked a few minutes ago and the fact that the birth was so recent, it really is special. Okay, well, we have arrived at the riverbed, so get comfortable and prepare yourselves for an exquisite stretch of scenery down a fairly abnormal pathway or road. In terms of animals, what we may see, I can see there's fairly fresh buffalo down here, so we could bump into them. And if not them, I'm hoping for leopard, bushbuck and nyala, animals that tend to prefer thicker habitats, which we naturally do find along the riverbanks. You'll notice that this river, yes, at the moment it is dry, but now that the rainy season is building up on us, it will begin to flow. Okay. Morning, Holly. Holly's just asked if elephants give birth out on their own, so they remove themselves from the herd in order to give birth, and the answer to that is no. They typically stay in the safety of the herd, and like I say, because they are such closely linked family animals essentially, and these herds are big families, they do tend to stick with one another so that they can help in the birthing process. And the closest I've ever been to seeing an elephant give birth was moments afterwards, I'm sure, when 6 of the females were all helping to hold up that elephant calf. So really useful that the mother can rely on the other animals within the herd to nurture and care for her calf. The nice thing about these roads is that you don't have to steer the car, it steers itself because the vehicle follows these tracks, so that way I don't have to worry about looking at the road and rather look around along the riverbed for whatever may be here. Also useful because we are very low, it helps to be able to sit up a little bit, and that way get a view of what may be lying on the bank either side. If I was to be seated in the seat now, it would be more difficult to get a view of what's potentially lurking along this riverbank. Jackie from Minnesota is asking if we have any bears here. Sadly we don't, Jackie, and I'm confident in saying nowhere on the African continent do we find bears. It's mainly in America and other regions they find different types of bears. I think you also get a few Asiatic bears, but in Africa and it is southern Africa, excuse me, we not have any bears. We have a raccoon-like animal, which is something you could potentially relate to, which is called the civet, a nocturnal animal that does look like, but no bears, sadly. We're going to have to come out on safari to see you. Go again there, Brian. Okay, would you prefer me to get out of the riverbed, or I'm happy to? Okay folks, we are going to continue down the riverbed. It is a bit of a gamble because we may lose signal or it may be a bit shaky, but I think it's worth taking the chance. So if we do crackle out for a few minutes, I'm sorry, but we will continue and hopefully we'll get to see some nice stuff along the way. Watch your heads here, guys. What I can use is a little stick to help me accelerate when need be. There we go. What I like about driving down beds like this is that even if you can't see anything, the scenery today. And what that means is two things. It means that we've got this whole playground to ourselves. Apologies again if we dropped the transmission, folks. It is also good for me to test and understand where we can broadcast to you from so that we know for the future. But we will shortly be out of this riverbed and the signal should get better. As I was saying, the fact that there aren't any game viewers out means two things. Number one, we've got the playground to ourselves, which for me is the ultimate. The only negative aspect of having the place to yourself is that there's only yourself to look for and find the animals, which in a huge area like this with so many different pathways, it's very difficult. The odds of you finding something are lower on your own for obvious reasons. But if you do find something, you've got no pressure at all to leave that sighting to show other people. And we all share sightings. It's important. You know, if it wasn't for all of the guides calling in and sharing their sightings with us, we wouldn't see nearly as much as we do. So it is an important part of the whole game drive experience and safari experience to share what you see with other people. But then again, every now and then it's nice to be a bit selfish and well, not be selfish, be in a situation where you're not required to move out and feel obliged to show other people anything in specific. So those are the benefits. Now this is coming to the end of the riverbed. There is a small little section further that we could continue down, but I'd like to pop out here because there's a waterhole very close by. So it'll be nice to see who's there. Morning, John from Connecticut. He's just asked about when the rainy season is, and it's now. We are in the rainy season now, but it's just the beginning of it, and it's basically our summer period. So from November in this area we can expect to get rain up until about February, March. That'll be the main rainy season. The winters are dry, cloudless skies, cold but dry, whereas our summers are hot and wet. So we can expect to get a lot more rain over the coming months. We've probably only got 1/10 of the annual rainfall that we usually get in this area so far. So a lot more rain is definitely on the way. Well, I shouldn't say definitely on the way, hopefully on the way, because obviously, as we all know, droughts do happen. Cool, well, I hope you enjoyed our little drive down the riverbed. And it's 82 degrees Fahrenheit today, to give you an idea of the temperature. Thanks, Brian, for that information already. So it is quite hot. And our rain comes often in quite violent and dramatic thunderstorms and a lot of lightning. Very nice to experience, actually, a proper low-felt thunderstorm. So this area is called the low-felt. The altitude is not high here, and a low-felt thunderstorm is really a spectacle to behold. Okay, well, there was nothing at the waterhole that we went past, which is Twin Dams, which is fine. uncommon for waterholes to be quiet in summer because there's a lot of water around, latent puddles, little wallows that fill up with rainwater. And also the animals will be out feeding now a lot of the time while it's nice and cool, and they'll tend to drink at midday, not always, but there is a larger congregation of animals towards the middle of the day. It's just in summer because it's hot, and obviously when it's very hot I'm thirsty, and it also provides them with a good opportunity to cool themselves down for those animals that do like swimming and wallowing in the water. Okay, now I'm just going to there. Good morning. Morning, is that Bernie? Morning, it's Scott here. Just wondering if there are any updates. Okay, copy. Quiet here this morning. No major on my side. There were tracks of a on Vuyatela camp, but didn't spend too much time following up. Yeah, nothing else to report. I didn't hear about the sighting of Mvula at Buffalo Dam. I wasn't out in the morning, but Mark was out and he found the quarantine males around Treehouse Dam. Okay, great. Thanks very much, Benny. Have a good morning. Sorry about that, folks. Just chatting to Bernie, who's a private landowner in this area, and he's just out exploring, and has also heard nothing on the radio. And he just gave me an update on that Mvula was seen yesterday afternoon around Buffelshoek Dam, which is great. It's funny how even though we've got radios, there's a lot of broken down telephone. So I didn't have a clue that Mvula had been seen there. If we were closer by, I would go past to have a look, but we are on the other end of the reserve at the moment. Okay, Nadav's seen some tracks. So the best way to establish what tracks are is to jump out and have a look. So that is what I'm going to do. Interesting. Well spotted. Now, these appear to be possibly tracks of a lioness. Or a big male leopard. And the fact that I can only see one set of tracks is leading me to believe that it's probably a large male leopard. A large male leopard and a young lioness could be confused by somebody like me. They are heading in that direction, and they look like they are from earlier last night, when there would have been a little bit of dew on the road. So what we'll do is we'll continue, and for two reasons. we're on our boundary here, so if the animal did head south, we wouldn't be able to go there, and if it did head north, that would be great, but we didn't see any sign of it along the way here. But well spotted in the dove. These are all vital clues that we need to load up with in order to have a chance of finding something. Cool. Who knows, that could have been the quarantine male. He was seen in this area yesterday, I believe. Okay. Now we have a lilac-breasted roller and a Burchell starling that seem to be getting a bit worked up about this bird of prey sitting in the tree. It looks like a Wahlberg's eagle, and if we just wait here a minute or two, we might get lucky and see these small birds really giving it a go. It's always wonderful to see such a small bird attacking and bombarding a bigger bird of prey. It also gives me a minute or two to have a little bite to eat because I'm starving. Morning, Elaine. Elaine is asking if there's any sign of the injured hippo, and sadly not. It's quite bizarre that we have lost track completely of it, but a good reminder that shows how wild and remote we are out here, and there are big areas that we just simply cannot get to. There are no roads and we don't know what happens in those areas. So sadly, Elaine, we don't have a clue what has happened to that hippo, and we'll be sure to let you know and make quite a fuss if we do find him again, because he's been missing for coming close on 2 weeks now, I would say. So all we can do is hope that he's well, but hard to tell how he is doing. Thanks very much, Elaine from Long Island. There's a bird calling now. It sounds like a phone ringing. Now that bird, there we go, is called a brew, and Emily's just asked a question about bird calls and what bird calls we can hear around us, so luckily I'd started with that one. So that bird that's making that kind of like a phone ringing is called a brew, B-R-U, B-R-U. Very strange name. I'm not sure how it ended up with that. Then, other birds. The problem is because there's so many, it's trying to like tune into one frequency. But I can hear the lilac-breasted roller, which is a very pretty bird, but it has a not so pretty call. So that's the... This is a rattling cisticola. This is an awesome calling. We can actually see the bird calling, which would be great. So if Nadav can try and get it. Those small and jittery little birds, but with a bit of luck, we will get the rattling cisticola. They really do make a lot of noise for a small bird. There we go. Wonderful. A real performer, this one. It's like you want to hear a bird call, wait, here I come. So now we get to hear and see the bird call. Now what other birds can I hear? There's a few drongos I can hear in the distance. It's difficult for me to assume what you can hear as opposed to what I can hear, because obviously the mic is not necessarily picking up what I may be picking up with my ears, so I'm trying to focus on the calls that are closer to us and that are easier to point out for you. Which is to give you guys an idea of the temperature. I had a breakfast muesli bar which was frozen this morning. I took it out of the freezer at around 4 o'clock, 4:30, and 3 hours later it is melted. So that is what I'm busy working my way through now, a melted muesli bar, which is delicious. But it's hot. Okay. Well, the birds okay. Hal from Rapid City has just asked another question, and that is whether we get a lot of veld fires or forest fires in the summer due to the lightning. And the answer to that is yes. The first rains of summer, so those first few thunder and lightning storms that come through, will potentially cause bushfires. Now, the reason why I say the first few thunderstorms is because after the winter the bush is very dry, everything is brown and bone dry. So the initial lightning strikes, even though it can be raining, there's enough dry fuel to cause a big fire. The longer we go into summer, the less likely a lightning strike will result in a big fire breaking out, because the vegetation will be wet and green. So, but yes, we do have lightning strikes that cause fires here, and it's a scary thing fighting fires out here. All of the fires that I fought in the Sabi Sands, and it was yearly in the 3.5 years that I was here, were at night time. So running around this bush at night with a raging fire can be a serious adrenaline rush. Once I heard pounding footsteps running towards me. I was off the vehicle with a wooden stick and a plastic mat tied to the end of this wooden pole that you literally beat the fire out with, and we had parked the vehicle about 200 meters, 250 meters away from the fire, so that in case things change, the vehicle doesn't get burnt, and moved towards the fire on foot. And we were about halfway there, and I heard these footsteps coming, heavy, loud footsteps coming towards me. So I stopped, which was all I could really do, and a rhino, white rhino, passed by a few meters. Thankfully it wasn't charging me, and it probably couldn't see, I could almost definitely say it didn't see me. All it was trying to do was retreat from the fire. But that gets the heart pumping. And fires obviously are very dangerous, as we all know, especially out in the bush. You know, there's so much fuel out here. If you get yourself into a situation where you, or a place where you shouldn't be, you could be encircled by a fire. So there's a lot of fire training between all of the lodges and for all of the guides who you know, all the people, excuse me, that work here form parts of the firefighting departments. So it is important that the lodges do give the guys training, because it's a life-threatening job fighting fire. Okay. One lone buffalo bull. I'm interested to see that he is completely alone. Okay, now a question's just been asked, still on the lightning subject, whether, okay, there's more buffalo here, so it's not just this individual. If animals can be struck by lightning, and they certainly can, and obviously the taller the animal, the more likely it is to be struck, but I personally haven't ever seen a lightning strike victim. But having said that, as we all know, a lot of the animals that die here are quickly consumed. So there's this individual here. It seems like a herd of buffalo bulls that we've come across here. Most of them are feeding off in the thick vegetation beyond this little clearing. But I must just double check to make sure it's not the fringe of a larger herd. There was a larger herd of buffalo moving through this area, this rough area yesterday. I was hoping those Birmingham boys, the Five Lions, were going to be hot on their heels, but no sign of them thus far. Kathy from Arizona has just asked if I've been charged by an animal on drive, and the one-word answer to that question is yes. If you would like to hear more in-depth stories, you're going to have to probably join in on some of our fireside chats. That's often a good platform for us to regale old tales of danger and excitements. Because they are quite long stories. But the answer is yes, it can happen in the vehicle, on foot. It's not uncommon to be charged if you do spend day in and day out in the wilderness. But there are too many stories to start telling now regarding that subject. But to list some of the animals and not the stories themselves: buffalo, lion, leopard, white rhino, black rhino, hippopotamus, to name a few. Interestingly enough, the other day I was walking, following some leopard tracks, and I was in a big open clearing and there was a warthog, an adult female warthog with a sub-adult youngster with her, just ones, but not even tiny babies. And she started giving me some serious attitude, and I was concerned at some stage that she was actually going to attack me. And I mean, I'd rather be attacked by a lion than a warthog, because it's quite embarrassing, I guess, to be attacked by a warthog. But it did get my mind going, and it's not unheard of for some of these smaller animals to charge and attack people, especially if they are young that they feel they need to protect. But thanks for that question, Kathy. And like I say, the fireside chats that I think we're going to be doing every Sunday evening will be a great platform for us to answer those questions, and there's a bit more time to get really in depth and emotive while jumping around the fireplace. Okay, we've got another question coming through from Rapid City, but this one is regarding parrots. And the parrots we do get in this area, I'm just going to get my book out, and that way I'll be able to show you exactly what we may be able to see here. There's one parrot that we see in this area, specific area, immediate area, but another two that we get in the Greater Kruger National Park. Now, Nadav's just going to try and focus in on this page that I've opened up to here. And the bottom three birds are clearly your parrots. And the one we get here is the brown-headed parrots. They're fairly common, but their habits and nature are a little bit difficult, make it difficult to view them. We will do our best to point them out to you. What I will be able to do a lot more easily would be to point out their call. It's a typical parrot-like shriek that they let off as they're flying. So we hear them often and get fleeting glimpses of them flying, but when they land in the big fruit trees where they get their food, they are difficult to view. So this is the main one we get here, the brown-headed, but we also get the grey-headed and Mayor's parrots in different parts of the Kruger National Park, typically further north in the Kruger Park. What will be interesting to point out to you guys is, I think we can actually find another map here. Bear with me, sorry. Where's that other map? So, this is the Kruger National Park. So, this is owned by the government. It's a national park that anybody has access to that can come on holiday in South Africa. You can rent a car and drive yourself through this park. Now, this is 300 kilometers long, which is 160 miles, 150 miles long, basically, and by about 20 to 30 miles wide, depending on the area. Now, where we find ourselves, we are nestled into this little square. Now, it's not shown, it's not marked green on this map because it's not officially the Kruger Park. This is the official Kruger Park. But there are no fences between us here in this area where my thumb is and the Kruger Park. So, just to give you an idea in relation to size and where that we are in the park, we're about a third of the way down. Everywhere east of this border here is Mozambique, and to the north we have Zimbabwe. So, just to give you a little bit of an idea of where we actually are on the map. And now if you look at a map of South Africa, we would be on the northeastern kind of border of South Africa. So there we go. I got a bit diverged from the parrots, but ooh, a few buffalo showing their strength behind us, having a little bit of a tussle. I'm just going to turn the vehicle around and hopefully we can get this. Awesome. Well spotted, my dove. Okay, come on. Awesome. Now, this is a situation that you don't see very often. I mean, it's not a full-blown fight at this stage. They're just sparring and practicing, you could say. But even though it's not a full-blown battle, it is great to see them showing their strength and how they can act when they are feeling a little bit more testosterone driven and worked up. I'm glad we got the end little glimpse of that, but we'll see if they don't start up again for us. Interesting. It would be so nice to know whether, you know, for me, I would be inclined to say that it was a playful, little friendly kind of head clash between those two individuals, as opposed to anything violent or sexually driven for mating. There's no females nearby. So I think that was just a friendly little tussle that we witnessed there. But again, you know, in these friendly little tussles, members will be able to understand who is more dominant than other males within the herd. Just like playing a social game of tennis with a friend, even though it's social, at the end of the game you'll realize who's better than who. And that's all useful information for these animals over time, so that they don't just end up permanently in these ridiculous aggressive fights when they know that they don't necessarily need to get that far because they are already dominant over a certain individual. Cool. Sally from Wisconsin, good morning and welcome. Currently, the closest monkeys you have a chance of seeing would be the one that's turning the steering wheel now, me. So, humans are the one form of primate that we get here. And in terms of the other monkeys, or primates, we have vervet monkeys, which are small grey monkeys. Very cute, that live here. And the chakma baboon is another primate that we see. Look at the attitude this buffalo is giving us. We're just going to have to keep an eye on him, because they have been known to crash into vehicles. But he does have some serious attitude, this boy. Hey, what's going on? He was relaxed on our way in, but now on our way out, he's had a serious look of disgust in his eyes, and he wasn't happy with our behavior. Beautiful red-billed oxpecker. Seems to be feeding on a small wound on the top of his back, but the wound appears to have healed. You've always got to be ready for a little bit of excitement and danger out here, because like I say, buffalo have crashed into more than one vehicle over their time on the planet. So he just showed some real intent on this vehicle, and I thought we were going to have some potential action. So back to the primates, we get two different species, the baboon and the vervet monkey. Other than that, there's a small nocturnal primate called the bush baby. Now, let me actually get this one out in the book for you because it is awesome. Now, the bush baby is a nocturnal primate. We sadly don't see many of them out here, but they do occur here, and they are just the cutest animal you'll ever see. They've got these massive eyes, they're incredible jumpers. So this, my friends, is a bush baby. Now you get different types in different areas, and a lot of different subspecies, but they all are very similar looking, and they have these massive eyes, which makes sense because they are nocturnal. And I mean, the ones we get in this area are small. They're probably 6 inches tall at the most, so they're very small, and they can spring like 9, 10, 12 feet from one thin branch to another in the middle of the night. It's incredible watching them. And as the scientific name suggests, Galago, there's a road around the camp called Galago after the bush baby, and that affirms that we do get bush babies in this area, but sadly we don't see many of them. Why, I'm not too sure. Obviously habitat is a problem, but I did share a theory that there were raging fires that came through this area about 10 years ago, and there's a theory that these fires just wiped out a lot of these bush babies as they went through, and they simply haven't recovered since then. But that is just a theory. And in terms of seeing primates, I haven't seen baboons once since I've been here, but I have seen vervet monkeys a handful of times. We will do our best to show you more of them. But in the meantime, we have a bird with a kill. This bird's called the red-backed shrike. It comes from North Africa and parts of Southern Europe for our summer. It's come a seriously long way, the old red-backed shrike, and as it flipped around, oh, there it flew off with its kill, and I'm glad it flipped around because you got to see its little reddish back. Pretty bird. I enjoy the little Zorro mask that it has over its eyes. In time, with technology, as it continues to get better, the more powerful these cameras become, the more we'll be allowed to gain insights and show people the smaller interesting things. I mean, that bird had just made a kill. If this was a leopard, because it's bigger and easier to see, naturally it's easier to understand what's going on and get excited about. But when we can really zoom in on what that animal has caught and get an understanding of how it would have caught it have caught it flying on the wing or landing on the ground, there's so much interesting stuff to read into, and in time, when technology gets better, we will be able to just keep digging deeper and exploring the smaller things which at the moment sometimes are difficult to portray and or understand. I can see footprints of marks from yesterday afternoon. He doesn't wear shoes, so he's quite an easy one to track. So Mark has been walking here. But that is not the reason I got out. The reason I got out was I saw some other tracks on the road here, which got me excited, but they turned out to just be hyena tracks. Speaking of which, I've not been to the hyena den site for a long time. I don't think this morning will be a good option because it's already so hot, so I just don't feel we'll get lucky with what we may see there. But this evening I would like to head across there. What is nice about these hot mornings is that the raptors are more likely to get active riding the thermals as they go. So no, it's not even 8 o'clock and there's already some raptors up in the sky because they can fly effortlessly when these hot thermals kick in. Whereas there's been some other mornings where it's as late as 9 o'clock, which means the drive is finished and there are no raptors in the sky. I'm not entirely sure what that one is. Imagine being able to float up there silently and effortlessly with binocular vision. Peter Pretoria says if he could choose one animal to have on game drive to assist him, it would be a bird of prey. And you could just drive around with the bird following you a few hundred feet in the air. And his plan would be to teach it to do different aerial displays for different animals. So if it saw a leopard, it could do a few loop-de-loops or whatever it may be to indicate that it's found something interesting. I would like to have a squirrel on my shoulder. That would be my animal, or on my head. And whenever you drive around, you've just got the squirrel scanning for you. And it would just be able to do its regular alarm call when it sees something interesting. Okay, I can see that. Just got a message through from Brian in the control room about a spider web. Now, interestingly enough, is that better, Brian? Yeah, okay, good. Interestingly, in the last week, 5 days, there seemed to be a lot more spider activity. Now, there's always spiders around, we know that for sure, but there's a certain spider called a bark spider, which builds its webs across roads very often. And I think those are the webs that we have been driving through. There's also another spider called the golden orb web spider, which makes an incredibly beautiful golden orbed nest, or web rather, and they are very beautiful and big spiders. So if you don't like spiders, you're probably not going to like the golden orb spider, but they are big and pretty and harmless. So those are going to start popping up soon and building their nests. Okay, now there's a woodlands kingfisher up in this tree, and the light is really shining beautifully on its turquoise back. Have you got it there, Nadav? If you follow this branch that comes towards us, there's a main fork, and then on the right hand side it's just, so there's one branch that's going directly towards us. Oh, there, yeah. Cool, well done. and the sun's really shining beautifully on its back, which is its most impressive part of its anatomy. That's where all the bright colors are. When it lands on a branch and does its display, it holds out its wings to show those beautiful colors, and does these kind of 180-degree jumps, so it's covering both angles so that everybody in the area can see its beautiful electric turquoise colorations. Okay, a question from Shanae on Twitter. Morning, Shanae. Welcome back. Shanae is asking, when do buffalo bulls leave the herd and form these bachelor herds of all the men? The exact age I don't know, but I'd say anywhere from 10 years of age upwards, 10 to 15 years of age upward, they'd probably start leaving the herd. They live for around 25 years, buffalo, on average, as a rough guide. And the buffalo don't leave the herd permanently. What they do is they join up when it suits them. So when a herd's passing by, these older bulls will join in for a few kilometers, try and get some mating done, and then retract back to a less chaotic life. The life of a breeding herd of buffalo is quite chaotic in that they're moving big distances. They've got a lot of predators on their heels because there are young calves available to them. So there's a lot of movement and kind of stress with being related to a breeding herd of buffalo. Whereas these old bulls are just kind of like, we've been there, we've done that. We just want to detract ourselves from all the mayhem, is my kind of way of describing it. But that doesn't mean they are sexually inactive or not interested in the herd anymore. They just kind of spend time with the herd when it suits them. So I'd actually probably go back on what I said and say later than 10 years. I'd say probably 15 to 20 years would be more likely for the bulls to start peeling away from the herd as they've got a bit older and are less inclined to look for trouble. So I hope that answers your question, Shanae, and thank you again for another question. For those of you who are not sure how to ask questions, it's quite simple. You just hashtag Safari Live on Twitter, and on email you would send it to questions@wildearth.tv. Oh, look at the catfish, quickly. Oh no. Hopefully they'll come up again. That was crazy. There was 3 catfish which had their mouths out the water and their whiskers sticking out. And then they disappeared. But we'll keep an eye on this muddy soup that you're looking into. Oh, there goes one. Look at that. Awesome. So that, folks, is a catfish, known locally as a barbel, and they can stay alive out of water for a long period of time, which is an interesting adaptation that they have, and they can even almost slither like snakes from one pond to another as ponds dry out. So that could be simply what they're doing, is breathing in some oxygen. You can imagine there not being too much oxygen in this muddy water. So I'm guessing they could well be breathing. But it's not often that you see them poking their mouths out, and we'll just give it a bit more time because Earlier there were 3 of them, all with their mouths right together and their whiskers sticking out. You can certainly see a lot of their bubbles and rises. Whether they're feeding on small insects on the surface. Oh, there's one here, there's one here. Have you got it? Oh. They're sadly not doing it very long, but we will get a visual for you folks, so just bear with us. It's quite an interesting mouth. Similar to the catfish that you do find in America and all over the world, in that they have these long whiskers. Awesome. You're getting that? Are you managing to get that? Cool. Great, folks. Like I said a bit earlier, and I probably should have reminded you, my monitor is broken, so I've got no idea of how good of a job the cameramen are doing. I'm sure it is a good job, just varying degrees of greatness. But I believe you guys are getting some good images of these catfish. And there's a whole lot of them together, so it's interesting that they all kind of congregated in this corner of Treehouse Dam, and that they are doing this strange kind of breathing, it looks like. But you can see them literally taking in breaths of air, and I think it's because this water is simply so muddy. The reason why they could be congregating at this edge of the dam would be the fact that there are these weaver nests dangling above the water. So in a moment, once they have stopped showing us this incredible behavior of fish breathing fresh air, which is not what you would typically see or assume a fish to be doing, but once they've finished this display, we'll be able to show the weaver's nests that are hanging over Treehouse Dam, and if any of those chicks fall into the water, those big catfish mouths will be sure to provide a new home for them. Okay, now good morning Kim. Kim's just sent through a question on Twitter asking if there's any crocodiles in these water holes. There certainly are crocodiles that live in this area, the Sabi Sands in general, but all of the Djuma water holes I have yet to see a crocodile in. Now, what's important to remember with crocodiles is that just because you haven't seen one does not mean that there's not one there. There have been many people that have been consumed by crocodiles for assuming that because they have not seen a crocodile, the crocodile does not exist. They can be very secretive and shy animals, well, not shy, but secretive and stealthy, so you wouldn't want to assume that there aren't crocodiles here, but because of the amount of time we do spend here, we can safely presume that there are no crocodiles in these water holes. But they do occur in the rivers that flow through the Sabi Sands, the bigger rivers, and they also do occur in some of the bigger water holes. But sadly, we have got no crocodiles at the moment in any of the Djuma water holes. If we did, these catfish would provide a very tasty meal, as would the terrapins, as would the baby birds. Crocodiles are very broad eaters in terms of what they will prey on, and they're actually one of the only animals that will actively consume a human or see a human as a potential food source. Most other animals you get, lions, leopards, the other predators, will have an inherent fear of man, and in very unique situations you may get cases where they may be man-eaters. A crocodile, however, will see a human and see you as an animal, a primate, I guess it would lick its lips saying, look at that primate, and then happily eat you. Whereas it's not the same for lion and leopard. They would usually be injured or old, or there'd be a unique scenario within which lion and leopard would attack a human for food. This is really crazy behavior looking at these catfish. I mean, you can literally see them taking breaths. And I mean, there I could count 5 in one shot, at least 5 or 6. Maybe it's some kind of a mating ritual going on, or I'm going to need to do some research as to what exactly they are doing and why they are all so close together when they are doing it. But just the craziest thing to be seeing. I'm guessing from the size of those mouths that these catfish are about 15 inches in length, but I'd say that would be their minimum length. That would be anywhere between kind of 15 and 25 inches in length at this size, but they can get massive. These same catfish can get 4 feet, 5 feet, 6 feet in length. Very, very big. All depending on their food and habitat, but they can get ginormous. There's a terrapin taking a chance, swimming through there. It could get inhaled by one of those catfish if it's not careful. And then before we head off, we'll just show you a little bit of footage of the weaver colony that we've been monitoring over the last few weeks. They really are beautiful birds, and not only are they beautiful, but the houses that they build are also seriously impressive. Sorry, I've made a very difficult angle here for the cameraman, so he's just repositioning himself to try and get some good shots. They are difficult critters to film because they tend to be a highly active bird jumping around, but there was one individual there that seems like it is having a little bit of a breather. Oh, there goes a nice one on his nest. Now, interestingly, because we've been viewing them quite frequently, these weavers, I saw one starting to build its nest one morning, and Hayden saw that same weaver the following morning, and on the third morning of me viewing it, when I came back here, its nest was 100% complete. So it takes them roughly 3 days to build one of these nests. Would be just an example from the one that I have watched closely enough to monitor the exact time frame. But yeah, 3 days, and then they invite a lady across for an inspection, and if she approves, well then all is well, they continue and start a family. If not, it's not uncommon for the female to tear down the nest in disgust and get the male to start again. These are the village weavers, and they nest very, very often over water and in these small communities. Dave Cartwright's just asked a question regarding vulture activity in this area. Morning, Dave. Now, we do get a lot of vultures in this area, but they typically only come here when there's food. So, when the timing is right and there's a dead elephant or a dead buffalo, something quite large in size, then we may get huge amounts of vultures coming in. Now, there have been reports with vultures that are collared or tracked rather with transmitters. They've got evidence of a vulture flying up and heading 200 miles, or maybe just short on 200 miles, beelining in one direction straight to a kill. Now, how it would know about that kill is, as once it does get up and rides a thermal, they can see about 3 or 4 miles another vulture, and you can imagine a whole stream of vultures heading in a certain direction. That creates a domino effect, and that domino effect can spread hundreds of kilometers, indicating to vultures which way to head to find these carcasses that they can feed on. So they do cover huge distances to find food, and understandably it's essential that they can cover these huge distances to find food, and not only cover the distance, but also once they get there, they can gorge themselves on in excess of 1.5 kilograms of meat, so around 3 pounds of meat in one sitting, which is a lot for a bird that probably only weighs about 5 or 6 kilograms, possibly a bit more, maybe about 7 kilograms of vulture. But they can gorge themselves at kills, and that's essential because they obviously can't feed themselves. They're scavengers, they clean up carcasses as opposed to kill them. So we do get them here. There's a video on my Facebook page of a flock of vultures descending down on an old buffalo carcass to feed, which was quite exciting a few weeks ago. So if any of you would like to follow my Facebook page, it's Scott Dyson Safaris, and I upload photos and videos of my life in the wilderness, so it's a good place for you to follow my movements. And on that thread, or on that page, you will see a vulture video from a few weeks ago, and sadly that is quite rare because we don't have buffalo getting killed by lion on a weekly basis on Djuma. If we did, we would have a lot more vulture viewing, but sadly they move around and do their business elsewhere, and therefore the vultures aren't always here. We get 3 different species that we typically see here: the white-backed vulture, which is the most common, then also the lappet-faced vulture, which is the biggest and strongest of the vultures, and the smallest and weakest of the vultures is the hooded vulture. So those are the 3 main species that we get here. Occasionally we'll get the Cape Griffin vulture, but yes, healthy populations of them in this area, but they do move huge distances and tend to congregate wherever there is food. which sadly there is none of here at the moment, not that we know of. If we see any vultures soaring around today, I will try my best to show you some images of them. But in the meantime, I think we should carry on. It's been very interesting, these catfish, and always good checking in on the weavers. Okay, we've got a question from Raisa in Finland asking how you would distinguish between a village weaver and a southern masked weaver from a distance. With difficulty is the short answer to that question, but their habits and location would be key factors. So the fact that these nests are dangling over water and there's more than one of them indicates that it's going to be a village weaver. You don't even have to look closely at the weaver itself. Whereas a southern masked weaver nests usually solitarily and not necessarily not above water. So if there is a nest nearby, that will help you to point out. If not, there's a slight difference in their mask. So what I'll do is show you the difference. It's very slight, but there is a difference that you can see if you look through your binoculars. So the village weaver, the mask does not go up onto its forehead above the beak. It's yellow from the beak onto its forehead over there. Whereas the southern masked weaver has got a small amount of mask between its beak and its forehead, if that makes any sense. So that would be one of the main differences here. Also, I mean, here it says in the book that the back of the village weaver is heavily blotched, whereas the southern masked is less so. Not that we can see its back here. But you're right, Tracy, not an easy bird to distinguish out in the field. But by using habits and habitat, you can help narrow down your options, even if you're not having a very good look at the bird. So thank you, that is a good question. There are quite a few birds that are tricky to distinguish out in the field. There's another very pretty raptor soaring up in the distance, but it's too far to get a good view of at the moment. However, it appears like it could be heading towards us, but it's not going to be easy at this distance for Nadav and the filming. There are now also some vultures soaring high above us, and that's going to be even more difficult for Nadav. But I'm willing to let him play around and try and give you guys an idea of how high they are and how effortlessly they soar. So these are the gambles we take to show you some good shots. We don't have any opportunities to edit anything for you, so this is live as it's happening and a little bit shaky potentially, but it looks like he's got it. So I think he's got a smile on his face, so that must mean something good. Cool. Now, while we've been staring up in the sky for the last few minutes and at the weaver's nest, we have not noticed a very large herbivore feeding in the distance. And I'm hoping, with a bit of luck, that this specific herbivore would like to come down for a drink. And like I said a bit earlier, as the day tends to heat up, the waterholes do become more active. So I think we are shortly in for a treat. I'm just going to try, I guess we don't have to move a muscle, we're probably in the best position here in terms of your view and our view and the fact that we are in shade. So give it a minute or two, but we have got some friends that will be joining us at the waterhole for They drink certainly, and if we're lucky, a little bit of a bath or a swim. It's quite funny, they're such big animals, but they're literally just hidden from us by one relatively small bush. I'm worried that I'm not sure what they're doing behind that bush. They may already be starting the wallowing process, but we'll just wait some. Let's see if we shouldn't actually move forward a little bit to see what they are doing, because I think they could be having a bit of a mud wallow. Yes, they are. So we are going to go and join them, because it'll be nice to get a bit closer and see them tossing all that mud around them. And this way we can get a little bit closer to the waterhole for when they are drinking. So just hold on here, guys, there's a few little bumps that I can't see too well. So I'll come back and watch them drink, but I just really want to show you these animals mud bathing. It really must be so relieving for them. Such an awesome feeling, throwing this cool mud over their body. The big female facing away from us is displaying very well when she fans her ears. You can see that network of veins running through her ears. And it's a hugely important part of their anatomy, those big ears, not for hearing, but for cooling. And you can see that network of veins. It's pumping a huge amounts of blood through those veins every minute, and that helps to keep these animals cool. They have an incredible cooling system, which does allow them to actually move through the hotter periods of the day where often other animals are inactive. Elephants can continue their never-ending quest for food, and they do need a lot of food. These females will probably be eating close on 300 pounds plus vegetation a day, which does take time. So it's just great to see from this angle those veins really well, so you get an idea of how much blood they can pump through those ears. And the ears form about 20% of their surface area of their body, which is hard to believe, but the fact that it's double-sided obviously helps greatly. And also from this angle you can see that flap that you typically wouldn't see if they were facing you, that little flap on the top that dangles downwards. Beautiful photographic opportunity this. I do bear with me, and like I say, if you would like to see any of my photos, Scott Dyson Safaris is the Facebook page. That would be the best to follow, and from there you'll find links onto my Instagram and whatever else. There's one individual drinking behind us, and I'm sure the rest will continue past, but I don't want to move the vehicle as they're walking past. I'd rather just enjoy this beautiful scene of them with their new shimmering body rubs, body scrubs, exfoliator. Soon to be, once it all dries, they'll find a tree and go and rub themselves up against it. Really beautiful, this. Sure. Dina on Twitter has just asked a question whether elephants can get sunburnt, and I don't think they can. I've heard of hippos having problems with the sun, but other than that, there's not many animals that I know of that do get sunburns, and elephant's hide is so thick and tough and rugged that I don't think they do have any problem with sunburn. But this one's got a problem with an itchy ear, it appears. You really did need to give it a good scratch there. So yes, Dina, the reason why they are throwing this mud over them is to initially cool. I'm just going to reposition, folks, because it's getting difficult for the cameraman. They do it initially to cool themselves, but also to create a dry cake or crust around their body, which encases or encloses ectoparasites in this dry mud and then peels them off. So this female, interestingly here, looks to be digging. Now, by digging below the ground water level, she may get fresher, cleaner water than what is found in the dam. So I think that is what she's trying to do. But let's just keep an eye on her and watch closely what happens here. She knows exactly what she's doing, and you can see, I mean, from all the depression there, that it's not the first time that elephants have dug in this area, and they do dig. It's a quality that they have that other animals don't have the luxury of, and that is the ability to be able to dig and then suck up water from what would look like a dry riverbed. They can get access to water. This could be a combination of, I mean, you can see she's almost spraying the water into her mouth to taste it, but not consuming any of it. You see that? So maybe she's not finding the water that's good enough for what she's wanting. They do like fresh water as opposed to muddy water if they can have a choice. We know this because they often rip up pipelines of water that doesn't matter where I've worked, elephants have provided problems with fresh water piping and digging it up and getting access to it. But it could be that they're looking for a few minerals, a mineral milkshake, hence the digging in this specific spot. Darren on Twitter has just asked a question about how many liters an adult elephant can hold in its trunk. I would say about 20 liters. I've seen an elephant drink 20 liters of water in a matter of seconds. So if it can drink 20 liters in 2 seconds, it can basically fit it that amount in its trunk in that period of time. So Darren, the answer for me is about 20 liters, but I could be a little bit off there, and it would be, you know, you do get people that work in rehabilitation centers that follow these animals day to day, and they may have some different or more accurate facts than that. But in the one instance where I was watching a rehabilitated elephant in a kind of a show, it consumed 20 liters of water in a frighteningly short space of time, literally a few seconds. It really is incredible how the muddy water is shimmering on their skin. It is beautiful to see. And those individuals out in the dam drinking, they've obviously disturbed those catfish that we were viewing earlier, but whew, it is cooking, folks, when we park in the sun. So you can understand why these ellies are really enjoying their mud bath so much, because it is hot out here. She's gone back to that same itch that she had earlier on her ear, which is quite interesting. Okay. Really enjoying the fact that we've got to witness this whole event unfold, this whole process of them starting off with the mud wallowing and then gradually moving on to this little wallow here. I'm not sure exactly what she was doing, but she certainly was intent on getting some of the liquid out of that hole. It could be minerals, like I said, because it certainly wasn't fresh water that was coming out of there, no fresher than this. And then now they're moving on to the third and final part of their experience. I'm just wanting to try and get directly opposite where all of them are drinking. Should be a beautiful view for us. There we go. Cape turtle dove singing its heart out in the background. Oh, that would have been beautiful to photograph, and dragging its trunk through the water. An interesting question has just come through from Mark asking whether a snake can take down an elephant with one bite. Now, I would firstly like to say that the skin on an elephant is very thick, so even if a snake were to bite an elephant, I'm not convinced that its fangs would penetrate deep enough into the skin for its venom to get into the blood system. If it did, however, it would need to have injected a lot of venom into the elephant in order for it to have any effect, because they're such big animals. So the chances of an elephant being killed by a snake are very small, even the most venomous snakes, and we do have some highly venomous snakes in this area. But possibly a baby elephant with thin, softer skin would potentially run into trouble with a snake bite, but I would find it unlikely that a snake would be able to kill an elephant. It is always interesting to wonder though what could happen and what has happened, because there is so much unknown in nature. So especially with these kind of scenarios, it could well have happened, like I say. Well, now it appears that another herd, or potentially a small part of this herd that we have just viewed, but there is another herd of elephants on the way, so we are going to get ourselves back into position for round 2, potentially, with elephants and drinking. They do seem to potentially be passing by though, not heading towards the water, but we'll give it a moment or two. But a lot of strange things do happen in nature, Mark, and obviously there's random, less likely events that do happen that are not the norm, but they still obviously happen. And then there are events that happen more frequently and you could kind of expect to see on a more common basis. A snake killing an elephant would be one of those random outliers that you would not likely witness or experience in a lifetime in the wilderness. So it's interesting, these elephants, which I should be coming into view now, are passing very close by to the dam. But obviously they are planning on having a later drink stop, because I'm fairly sure that they know that there's water here. They could well have potentially heard the other herd of elephant through that infrasonic communication that we spoke about earlier this morning. So maybe there's a lack of requirement to drink, or a lack of interest to see that other herd of elephants. Different friendship circles, potentially. Joe McDowell on Twitter, good morning and welcome. Joe's asked whether there are any natural predators of elephants. The answer to that is yes, there are. There's been footage of lions hunting elephants in certain places in Botswana, and I'm sure it's happened elsewhere throughout Africa, but it's a very unique scenario, that, and you need a lot of lions, prides of 20 plus lions, in order to take down an elephant and create the urge to hunt such big prey. It comes with a big pride of lions, so 20 or plus lion is not common to see as a starting point, but if you do see them, they can potentially hunt elephants. And I have seen a photograph of a crocodile holding on as tight as it can to an elephant's trunk, but the elephant's kind of pulling the crocodile out of the water as it clamped onto its trunk. I think that crocodile was just taking a chance, but a big crocodile could easily take down a baby elephant, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's happened a handful of times. I haven't seen footage of it, and I'm not sure if it has been documented, but if I could put money down on it happening, I probably would, because you get some monstrous crocodiles that could easily take down an elephant. But yeah, lion and crocodile would be your only two likely predators to take down an elephant, and it doesn't happen often. Where it does happen, it's fairly frequent in a certain place in Botswana. There's an incredible documentary on these lions hunting the elephants, and it's in a very emotional and quite obviously sad to witness, because it's not easy for the lion to kill the elephant quickly, so it's not the most humane death, but it happens, and that is nature. On something a little bit more light-hearted than elephants being attacked by lions, we have a woolly-necked stork which has come and perched itself in a dead knobthorn tree here at Treehouse Dam, and I'm sure it'll fly down once it's checked that the coast is clear and feed on some amphibious aquatic beings that lurk in the shallows. But this stork is a common stork in this area. They're here throughout the year, and very typical looking, just like storks that you find throughout the world. You'll find a lot of the species that we have here in Africa do occur elsewhere in the world, and it's just nice for you guys to be able to relate to something we may see here with some birds that you may have back home. Okay, 20 minutes left, folks. Let's keep the wind in our faces and see what we can find. This was the area that the quarantine young male leopard was seen in yesterday. Now, a lot can change in 24 hours with regards to where a leopard may be relative to where it was seen. But it is just nice to know that he was lurking in these parts, and he could well still be here. I mean, he could have made a kill yesterday and be lying in a tree around the next corner. We are not sure. On the other side of it, he could have not made a kill and spent many miles searching for prey and hunting and failing and searching and trying and failing. So, as easily as he could be around the next corner, he could be a far distance off from here. Nadav, can you remember where it was exactly yesterday? Okay. So Nadav was out with Mark the other morning, and he's just confirmed that we passed the area where he was seen, and Nadav no doubt scanned that area with extra care, and no surprise that he wasn't right there. It is a good time of year to spot leopards up trees, and specifically a marula tree. The marula trees, which I'll point out to you, here's a prime example on our left. So the marula tree is a favorite of the leopard because it has these thick, comfortable horizontal branches, of which you can see a few different options that a leopard could sleep on these horizontal branches. So most of the other trees in this area don't have as comfortable horizontal branch as the marula tree. So it is one of the favorites of leopards to sleep in. You can imagine how comfortable one could be on either of the horizontal branches of this tree. And the good thing about this time of year is that the marula trees, A, have got leaves on them, whereas in winter they don't, so they're not going to provide any shade. Secondly, it's very hot in summer as opposed to winter, so they are more likely to seek shade than in winter. So the fact that it's shady, well-leaved in the summer, and also the fact that it's much hotter in the summer would be two reasons why the leopard would go up there. And then a third contributing factor is because the grass becomes much longer in summer, it's almost like a thicker duvet. If you are lying on the ground, you're blanketed with grass, which will keep you warm. Whereas elevated up in the trees, you're going to have a lot more of a breeze and a draft keeping you cool. So do keep your onions peeled in the trees with horizontal branches for any strange shapes that may be a leopard. Okay, good morning Sandy, and welcome to this morning's drive. Sandy's asked whether we see any warthog and ostrich here. Ostrich I've seen a handful of times within this area of the Sabi Sands, but it's not common to see them here. They prefer more open areas. Lion catch them relatively easily in thick vegetation like this. So they prefer open areas from a safety perspective, and I think also in terms of their dietary requirements, they find more food in open areas. Our chances of seeing an ostrich here in the next few months are very slim. However, warthog, we will be able to show you, and thanks for reminding me. I actually saw a female with 4 tiny little piglets just the other day, and I said to myself, I really need to go there and show you guys some warthog. So this afternoon, I will be on a warthog hunt, and the piglets are so small and cute. Sadly, it's too far to get to now, but this afternoon, I assure you, I'll head to that area where I saw them, and with a bit of luck, we'll get to see them. Also, habitat restricts warthog in this area because it's very thick. They don't do well. They're short animals, and when you're short in thick vegetation, it's easy for animals to creep up on you without you knowing that they're there. So that makes life difficult for them here, for them to thrive. And the area that I will take you to show them is a lot more open, short grass. So, but it's a good observation. It's not that we're avoiding them. It's simply that there are not many here, and the few that I have seen have often run away from the camera. One that would have been a good one to see was the one that I thought was going to charge me the other day when I was on foot. I'm not sure if you were with us a little bit earlier on drive, but I was asked whether I'd been charged before, and the most recent charge or stage when I was nervous was actually with a warthog, of all animals. It was a female with not even a small youngster. It was one sub-adult, and she didn't like the look of me, and I thought she may actually come and cause some trouble, but thankfully she didn't, because I would, even though it's small, a warthog's much faster than me, and pound for pound much stronger, and they've got sharp tusks, so I would have come off second best. I was also in a big open clearing, so I had nowhere to go. It's a pity there aren't more warthog and ostrich here. They are wonderful animals to view, but you can't have everything, and we are spoiled with some incredible game viewing here, so not to be greedy, but it is important to point out that they are great animals to view. Well, this certainly has been a morning of elephants. I've thoroughly enjoyed all the different elephant sightings we've had. We had the youngster in the beginning giving us a bit of attitude with the rest of the herd feeding past us. And then now watching this herd mudwallow and drink was quite fantastic. I feel like we need a lucky charm for the last few minutes of the drive, so I'm going to pick up something. I'm not sure what bird this is from. It could be a vulture. It could well be a vulture. So that is what I would like to guess, but I'm not 100% sure. Now, our next task is to find somewhere to put them so that they can guide us in the right direction. We'll see how that does for now. Not that we needed a lucky charm, but I thought it would be a nice addition to Zanella. She is a lady and she does need pampering, and she does like decorating herself, so this is a small start in the right direction. Gloria Hawkins on Twitter. Good morning and welcome. Gloria has just asked whether cheetah are common in the Sabi Sands. The answer to that is no, Gloria. They are not common, and not now. It's important to emphasize, not at the moment. There are certain times that I've heard of, certain eras where cheetah were more prominent in the Sabi Sands. 10-15 years ago there were a bit more cheetah sightings, but it does ebb and flow, the number of cheetah that are seen in this area. The fundamental problem that cheetah face in this area though is initially habitat. As you can see, a lot of the areas are thick, so any animal requiring open vegetation to thrive is going to battle. So that would be the ostrich and the warthog as two examples, and now the cheetah, all animals that prefer and do better in open areas. Having said that though, there have been a few cheetah moving through the area over the last few months, but it's very uncommon to see them here. In 3.5 years that I spent in the Sabi Sands, not exactly here, further south from here, but similar vegetation, on average in a 6-week working cycle you would see cheetah once or twice at the most as an average statistic. So relative to the amount of times you're seeing lion and leopard, cheetah are highly uncommon here, which is a pity, because it would be wonderful to follow the fastest mammal on Earth doing its business more often than not. But like I say, we are really so spoiled already here in terms of the big five, not that that's important, but the animals do include the lion, leopard, elephant, buffalo, and rhino. So those animals are quite prominent here, and we do enjoy really good sightings of those animals. And out of all of those animals, the leopard especially is the one that stands out from the rest, because the leopard is a very shy and elusive animal typically, and there's lots of places in Africa where leopards occur, but they are not seen. Here, on the other hand, they occur and we get to see them, which obviously helps a lot, because without seeing them, we don't get to share their beauty and understand how beautiful and amazing they are. So there are a lot of benefits of this reserve and of this area relative to lots of other wilderness areas that I have spent time in over the years. Sadly, cheetah and warthog and ostrich are not the strong points of the Sabi Sands. Having said all of that though, I'm hoping to see a leopard, at least a cheetah, at least once or twice before this comes to a close on the 31st of January next year. The bird you can hear calling is a woodlands kingfisher. Wonderful. I'm not even going to try and stop to show you that one because it's in such a thick bush. And even when they're on a perfect branch, as the camera points in their direction, they tend to shoot off. So we've got to wait for the perfect opportunity with which to show you the woodlands kingfisher. We did get a good one earlier, Nadav, I think. Hey, did you manage to get a shot in it earlier? Okay, good. So you did. Whoever was watching earlier got a good view of the beautiful woodlands kingfisher. There's a lot of hyena activity down this road. There's tracks up and down. And the reason for that is that we are on the road that runs past the den sites. So we may as well just poke our nose in there. I'm not expecting great things because of the heat, but we've got enough time to get down there and give you a glimpse of what may be in store for you this afternoon at the hyena den. I'd like to, at this stage, possibly spend some time at the hyena den this afternoon and also go on the quest for the warthog. Copy, thank you, sir. The questions just come through from Anne-Marie, asking whether are any snakes animals immune to venom, and the answer to that is yes. Certain snakes themselves would be immune to their own venom, I believe. I stand to be corrected though. And what I can tell you is one story about footage that I saw of a honey badger attacking a puff adder. And now the puff adder is a highly venomous snake, highly cytotoxic venom which attacks your flesh. And in the process of attacking this honey badger, this puff adder, the honey badger did get bitten. It proceeded to kill the puff adder. Sorry, I'm getting my animals confused here. It proceeded to kill the puff adder and then simply rolled into a ball and went to sleep. And the people who were filming it continued filming for, I think it was like 2 hours. So this honey badger asleep proceeded to eat the doe. Whether that was the honey badger being very clever and slowing down its heart rate to the slowest it could possibly be, which is when you're sleeping, which would prevent the venom from circulating through its system, but it came out of that puff adder bite unscathed. Whether into it, I'm not sure. Whether the puff adder didn't manage to envenomate in the bite, because it could be a dry bite from a snake, not a venomous wet bite, I'm not sure, but I would be interested to know of any guaranteed immunities out there. I'm not aware of any for 100%, but there could well be. So we are at the hyena den site, and at first glance, with no surprise it seems like there's nobody home, and the reason for that is a lot to do with the heat. They could be in the burrow that's cooler within the termite mound, or they've possibly moved houses. I haven't been here for a few days. They do tend to shift and change their accommodation fairly regularly. In order to prevent pest builds up. You can imagine the fleas and ticks that build up over time in a certain den, and I guess excrement from the youngsters. There are so many dragonflies flying around, it's actually phenomenal. Now, how on earth Nadav is going to film this, I don't know, but we're going to let him try. But there are literally dragonflies everywhere. Hundreds of them soaring above us like we've got a private aerial escort. Are you managing to get them, Nadav?
Yeah, actually a bit.
Okay, well done. So just interesting that
focus.
It's just interesting to see so many of them together. What would be easier for Nadav to show you though is the vultures circling way up above us. I'm guessing they're a mile, 2 miles up in the sky, and from all the way up there they can obviously see directly down, and way off in the distance they'll notice if other vultures are plummeting out of the sky down onto a kill, and then they'll obviously start soaring in that direction. So imperative for them to be so high up, to be able to cover as much ground with those incredibly strong eyes of theirs. And we've just got a few minutes left, so I'm going to start saying goodbye and thank you for joining, and thanks for all the questions. I've thoroughly enjoyed this morning with all the elephants, and after yesterday afternoon's drive with leopard and lion, it's not that I don't want to see any more, and obviously I want to show you them as much as possible, but it's important to give whatever animal's performing or presenting itself to you the stage. We don't always have the opportunity to put animals on stage. They rather decide when they would like to be on stage, and all we can do is show you that. So this morning we had different characters which performed for us. The catfish were one that I really didn't expect to get a performance out of, so that for me was something very interesting. The weavers are always great. All the birds along the way that we saw, those buffalo having a little bit of a tussle, even though it was little, it's still good to see how they can behave. So yeah, folks, I hope you enjoyed this morning, and it's going to be Mark and myself out this afternoon again, so if another set of eyes or 2 sets of eyes, Mark and the cameraman, I'm not sure who's going to be cameraman with Mark this afternoon, but another vehicle exploring this beautiful wilderness and searching for interesting things to show you. And it's also nice that way that we can chop between the 2 vehicles and show you whatever's the most exciting or interesting option that is available to us at the time. But I think we should just let you watch these vultures soaring off in the distance as a gentle goodbye and a slow goodbye, but from me until this afternoon, thank you very much. Have a great day or great morning, and finish off with these vultures soaring off in the distance. Who knows where they'll end up later today, but for now it's just pretty to be able to watch them. And a big thank you to Nadav. I often forget to thank the cameraman, and it's not because I don't appreciate their work, but well done to Nadav. Thank you very much for joining me.
Pleasure. It's been really fun.
Good stuff. Well, folks, enjoy the vultures, and until this afternoon, all the best.